topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Tampa. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show. This is our 16th year of bringing you the finest experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, this is the last Tuesday of the month. God, I got it. This is the last day of the month, not just the last Tuesday, but this is K. Bender Rinbaum Hour. And if you live in an association in the Tampa market, you will enjoy the next 50 minutes of our show. We've got God, she is becoming so popular on our show. Let me introduce you to attorney Kirsten Hens. Good afternoon, Kirsten.
Good afternoon, Steve.
Last day of October. September. Unbelievable.
I know, I can't believe October 1st tomorrow.
That's amazing. Anyway, hey, listen, Kirsten, we love having you on the show. The letters that we get, people love the way you respond to the questions. What we do with this show is we ask you to write your questions in. You can text them to me or you can email them to me. And on the following show, we will most likely answer your question. But Kirsten, tell everybody about this great law firm, K. Bender Rinbaum.
Yes.
The best.
So for those of you who are not familiar with the firm, we are an exclusive community association law firm. So that means that we represent exclusively community associations, your condominium, homeowner, and cooperative associations throughout the state of Florida. Our main office is located in South Florida in the Pompano Beach area, but we do have other locations, including Palm Beach Gardens, and then in the Orlando area. And I manage the West Coast office for the firm, which is located in Tampa, Florida.
You know what I love about your firm is basically this is all you do is community association law.
That's correct, Steve. This is our one and only specialty. So, we don't really do any other law, anything related to community associations. That's what we practice. We have attorneys who are what we refer to as general association counsel, which I am one of those. And we typically are the direct contact for board members as well as property managers. So typically, if there's an issue, we're the first ones to receive the phone call. But we do also have within the firm a collections foreclosure department, and that team focuses primarily on collections and foreclosures. And then we have a litigation team. So that team focuses primarily on dispute resolution, which includes mediation, arbitration, and then certainly litigation, whether the association is looking to sue or in the event the association is sued.
I bring that up because we have shows all over the country. So I am in contact with community association law firms across the country. And it is amazing. I would say, Kirsten, you might not agree with this, but I would say 80% of them practice many other areas of law, bankruptcy, business law, real estate law. And I have learned over the years, just concentrating in one area really puts you above all the rest.
Agreed. And this area of the law has just become more complicated over the years. And so, I can't even imagine just dabbling in this area of the law.
Yeah.
And I would really caution, board members and managers who are looking to hire counsel for their associations, really, try to go with a firm that, specializes in this area of the law, and not just a firm that might have, one, sole practitioner who's, just trying to learn, this law and guide clients. So I would really encourage to seek out a firm that really specializes in this area of the law, like Kevin Rimbaum.
Yes, right. And let me also add this. Of course, I read a lot of the complaints about other community association law firms. And the biggest complaint was they would call the attorney's office and it would take them a week to 2 weeks to get back with them. I know Robert, Michael uh, have customer service is so important to your firm.
That's correct. I think a lot of attorneys forget that at the end of the day, we are still in the customer service business, right? And so, yeah, I mean, our policy typically is, at the very least, you are going to get an acknowledgement email from the attorney,
Right.
letting you know that we've received the email. We'll work on it. Certain projects just take time. Reviewing a multi-million-dollar contract is not something we can turn around in 48 hours. But for the most part, yes, we try to maintain those open channels of communication with the client, with the board members.
And I also noticed that when I went to your what I call your corporate office in Pompano, the desk where the support people would sit that greet you, there wasn't one person there. There was three people there. So that tells you how important customer service is to K-Bender Rimbaum.
It is. It is.
So let's go to God. We've got so much mail. We cannot, there's no way we can get to them all. I keep thinking one of these days we're going to get to all of them. I don't think in the last 4 years, we've gotten all your mail, but keep them coming. Let us know if you're a condo or an HOA. That is really important because sometimes Kirsten will have to guess if you're an HOA or condo, and it makes a big difference. So let's start off with Chad in Winter Park. He wants to know, is visitors with an ES dog required to advise the association or property management in advance of arriving with the dog? The tenant's lease does not allow pets or dogs.
Okay. So, just because the tenant's lease does not allow, dogs or pets, in this case, if this is an emotional support animal or assistance animal, then, the landlord does have to provide a certain accommodation under fair housing laws. And so would the association. I would have to first confirm if the association, in fact, is a no pet, condominium. So that's something that would have to be expressly set forth in the declaration, not in a rule or in a policy. And I think a lot of board members get this one wrong. If your declaration is silent on pets, and the board then adopts a rule that prohibits pets, that rule will be in conflict with the declaration. So if you are in a community that wants to prohibit pets, make sure that you incorporate that restriction in your declaration. Presuming this is a no pet condominium,
Yes,
and the landlord has allowed an emotional support animal, then the association should be adopting assistance animal ESA rules, presuming the board even has the ability to adopt rules, which typically they do. But yeah, I mean, I would make sure you have some kind of board rule or policy requiring some form of registration. You can't prohibit an emotional supporting animal, from coming into the building if there is proper documentation and to support the need. But assuming everything checks out, I don't see an issue in adopting a rule that requires some form of advance notice or registration. Just so the
There's
board
a
is
lot
aware.
of people who write us, Kirsten, who I guess show their doubts if the animal is really an emotional support animal. Because they'll say, "Hey, I see the person walking the dog, and they don't look like they need an emotional support animal." What
Right.
determines that?
Well, it's not just a physical need
Okay.
that it's not just a physical need. It can be an emotional need that that might require that assistance animal, and an assistance animal can be a service animal. But if the disability of the owner is not visible, right? And typically with these emotional disabilities, they're not readily apparent, right? So if the disability is not visible or the need for the animal is not apparent, then the board has the right to perform their due diligence and request certain documentation, backup information to make a determination on whether or not this individual is eligible for that accommodation, right? Including they may request the owner to, or the owner's, whether it's physician or social worker, but a healthcare provider to confirm the owner's disability, how the disability substantially affects the day-to-day life of the individual, and then what is does the individual have a disability related need for this animal? And remember, under fair housing laws, the assistant animal does not have to be certified to perform the specific task. Okay, so I would encourage board members and managers, if you are in a situation where an individual is requesting an accommodation to a pet restriction, that you confirm and discuss with your legal counsel what rights you have.
Okay. Let me ask you, do you get a lot of questions from your clients about websites on what should be on there, what's not on there? Or is that just me?
No, and this is becoming a little bit more prevalent now, especially for condos, since the new law is the law has been already adopted, but it's going to become effective come January 1st. So come January 1st of 2026, condominium associations that have 25 units or more are now required to have website. Okay, so get with your property manager, get with your legal counsel if you have any questions, and make sure you roll this website into the new year.
Lori in Tampa, opening an online account with DBPR. Do you have to create and maintain an online account in the electric format? What information will they require?
Yes. So come October 1st of this year, condo associations are required to open and maintain this online account. And I know the Division of Condominium has sent out emails with additional information and have postings about, with instructions on how to open these accounts and the specific information that has to be disclosed. But essentially, you'll be identifying, the name of the association, your physical and mailing address, email addresses and phone numbers of the association, the name and board title of each board member. So a lot of this just, generic information. Hyperlink, you have to identify the hyperlink or website address of the association. You'll need to identify the total number of buildings, and for each building of the association, if you have multiple buildings, you'll need to identify the total number of stories, total number of units, the age of the building, and then you'll have to identify certain information regarding your regular and special assessments. So, and then you're going to have an obligation to update this account within a certain time frame should any of this information change.
Kirsten, again, kind of going off the questions I have, it is amazing how much a board has to do. I mean, it's like running a big corporation, and I just can't see how anyone could even attempt to do this, no matter how big or small, without a law firm like K. Bender Rimbaum.
It is. And that's the thing. A lot of board members forget that at the end of the day, they are running a corporation. It's a not-for-profit corporation, but an entity nonetheless that is equally governed by Chapter 617 of the Florida statute. Yes, I think board members, really should have a team behind it. Remember, board members are not expected to be experts in all things, condo HOA law, right? But, they are expected to rely on their experts. And those are, your accountants, property managers, legal counsel, engineers. So definitely seek these experts to assist you with corporate governance.
Yes, exactly. Let's go to Hank in Lakeland. Do the bylaws supersede a rule book in the condominium association? Also, does the county supersede their permits that are issued by a park condominium? Never heard of a park condominium.
So let's take the first part of the question, which really refers to hierarchy of your governing documents. And sometimes board members use the word bylaws to refer to really your declaration. So it's sometimes synonymous with declaration, but let me just clarify. In terms of the corporate governing documents of an association, there is a hierarchy. And at the top of that hierarchy is your declaration, whether it's the declaration of condominium or it's a declaration of covenants if you are operating an HOA under Chapter 720 of the Florida statute. But that is your supreme document. It is essentially the contract between the owners that buy into the community and the association, right? It is the document that's going to contain your use restrictions, what you can and cannot do. For example, can you have pets? Are purchasers required to get screened, so forth and so on. So underneath your declaration, you're going to have your articles of incorporation and then your bylaws. And your articles of incorporation and bylaws are documents that essentially set out the corporate structure of the association, right? So, who qualifies as a member of the community, who qualifies as directors, who are your officers, how many directors you need to serve on the board, so forth and so on. The developer records typically the articles of incorporation with the state of Florida in Tallahassee. And then the bylaws really is an extension of your article. So it's going to have a little bit more meat and potatoes. So it's going to be the declaration, the articles, and then the bylaws. And then you might have rules, regulations, policies, architectural guidelines, so forth and so on. Those are not really considered part of your governing document. And in the hierarchy of things, they really are sort of at the bottom. So in the event of a conflict, typically your declaration will supersede anything that's in the articles, bylaws, and certainly your bylaws will supersede your rules. Now, in terms of, county ordinance, permit requirements, I'm not familiar of a park condominium issuing permits.
Never heard of that
So
before.
typically, a permit is within the jurisdiction of the, county or municipality. I'm not familiar with, you know, condo requirements,
Right.
superseding, a county, permit requirements.
Kirsten, I want people to understand. I know this all sometimes sounds complicated. And for a person who's thinking about running for the board, what I've learned from you is you don't have to have, a master's degree to run for the board, do you?
No, you don't have a master's degree. You don't need a master's degree. And that's what I said earlier. You're not expected to be an expert in all things condo HOA law, but you are expected to rely on your experts. And so, surround yourself, hire those experts to assist you in making the business decisions for your community.
Another thing I love about your firm is you uh, offer so many free classes each month. And I know you and Alan and Michael are always putting in so many hours to educate people. And you've got a lot of, uh, so far, I guess it looks like you've got a lot of classes coming up. Can you go over some of those?
Yeah. So September is over. So starting October 3rd, which is this Friday, this coming up Friday, I'm
Yeah.
actually teaching a class on HOA financial literacy and transparency. So this
Ooh,
is
that's good.
specifically for HOAs governed under Chapter 720 of the Florida statute. We're going to talk about all things, all financials, about financials and so forth and so on. Then on October 8th, I will be actually teaching another class on cable internet access agreements and financial impacts on associations. So we'll be talking about, bulk service contracts. So if you are looking to get into a bulk service contract or you're in it, this might be a good one for you. And these are all webinars, by the way. So, listeners can go on our website, find the calendar,
Right.
and then sign up free of charge, of course. On October 14th, Alan will be teaching a class on guest restrictions and screening tenants. Then I'm actually going to conduct a breakfast and learn in the Lakewood Ranch area at a restaurant called The Grove. And I will actually be teaching the guest restrictions class in person over breakfast. So if you are local in the Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch, or Tampa area, feel free to sign up. You'll be eating basically a free, delicious breakfast while
You
you
won
get
the
your
conflip.
CU credit.
You won the conflip clip on that one.
This class is offered for continuing education credit for HOA, so it will meet that CEU requirement. Then on the 23rd of October, I'm going to be teaching the legal update CEU class for condominiums. So this particular class will this will satisfy the continuing education requirement for condominiums. And then on October 24th, Alan and I will be teaching the condo board certification class, that 4-hour class. So again, these are all webinars, so you can sign up on the firm website.
You've also got a big one coming up on October 21st, right? Condo and HOA Expo.
Oh, that's right. I didn't. That's right. I didn't go over the expo. So the Tampa expo is going to be on October 21st at the Tampa Convention Center, and I will be teaching the 2-hour legal update as well as a class on updating your governing documents. And then October 29th is going to be the Bradenton area expo at the convention center. So I'll be teaching the legal update there as well. So if you're in the area, stop by, say hello.
You have got such a busy month. Um, Tell people, we're going to go to break. Tell people how they can reach your office.
Yes, any one of our attorneys, regardless of what office, can be reached through the main number, which is 954 928 0680.
We're going to go to a short break, and we'll be right back with the Kay Bender Hour with attorney Hurston Hens. We'll be right back.
K. Bender Rembaum is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida. On kbrlegal.com, you can learn more about their offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Orlando, Tampa, as well as throughout Miami-Dade by appointment. Several K. Bender Rembaum attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law and assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments that affect their associations. K. Bender Rembaum is also a well-known provider of free legal education for managers and board members. Contact K. Bender Rembaum today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or write to them at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
We are back. This is the Ask the Expert show. We are with you every Thursday from 5 to 5:50. This is our 16th year. This is always the last Tuesday and Thursday of the month is always K. Bender Rembaum. Tuesdays are Tampa and Thursdays are Orlando. And the first Thursday of the month, which we are going to be doing a replay this year because of the Jewish holidays, we have a show the first Thursday of the month at 5 o'clock. We're answering as many of your questions as we can right now. We're here with attorney Kirsten Hens, who always, you've never been able to stump her before. She's always got the answers, but that's why she's with such a great law firm. This is kind of a long question, Kirsten. This is from Nate in Tampa. He says, I really enjoy your show. It's always so informative. This has got to be a cousin of yours. Can a unit owner that has restricted occupancy per the bylaws in his unit ask another unit owner to register his parents so the family member can live in the association? This unit owner is trying to circumvent cause he's already in violation of the occupancy. What if the board doesn't have a violation committee? It's difficult for people to establish in my association. That's a long one.
It is. I'm not really even sure how this rule or restriction is being, how it can even be circumvented to have another owner register these additional occupants who will be living in this unit. So, I mean, I would start with, taking a look at what the documents, the declaration provides for guest occupancy restrictions, as well as, any rules or policies, depending on what the restriction is and what this individual is trying to do. I would say that probably a more effective remedy, rather than go through, a grievance committee or a fining suspension committee, is really have your association legal counsel send a demand letter to this owner to cease and desist this conduct. Sometimes, those types of letters are productive and can encourage compliance. And then from there on, speak with legal counsel. Typically this type of violation can be addressed at mediation. But that's probably the more
Okay.
effective remedy in this particular case.
Charles in Tampa, is it true the board must take a vote on each fine before it's imposed on a resident?
Well, it's true that the board does have to vote to approve the fine. But the fine cannot be imposed until a committee, call it fining committee, grievance committee, however you want, but that committee then has to vote to impose the fine. So that committee is the one that ultimately decides whether or not that fine gets imposed. So it is essentially, a two-step process, with the board adopting the fine first and then the committee affirming the fine before it can be imposed.
Ben and Lutz, regarding Zoom, board members must remain on to maintain a quorum. We often have a board member leave during the meeting, often noticeable, and when there's a roll call vote, there's no answer.
Well, I don't know that the board
Yes,
member
yeah.
has to stay in the Zoom call the entire meeting to maintain quorum. And sometimes your bylaws will say that, once you've established quorum, if a director has to, leave the meeting, that does not mean that you no longer have quorum at the meeting. So it really is going to just depend on what your bylaws say.
It's always refer back to your docs, right? Kelly in Tampa, what is the HOA's law about auditing? Our HOA has not had an audit for 5 years.
Well, whether or not this association is required to do an audit, it's going to depend on two things. The audit requirement can either come from a provision in the bylaws. So take a look at the bylaws, and if your bylaws specifically require the association to do an end of year financial audit, then you have to do a financial audit. But if your bylaws do not specifically require the audit, then the only other way that you would be required to do one is if the annual revenue of the association reaches the threshold that's currently set forth in the statute. And if this caller is with an HOA under Chapter 720, then 720 provides that the annual revenue of the association has to be at least $500,000 in order for the association to be required to do a financial audit. So first, start with confirming that this association, in fact, is required to do an audit. And if not, if the bylaws are silent, or if the annual revenue of the association is less than $500,000, then confirm where your annual revenue lies, and then confirm the corresponding end of year financial report that the association is required to do. Now, if you're not required to do a financial audit and the board wants to do it, typically that will require membership approval to increase the level of financial reporting. Okay, so I would speak with your legal counsel to confirm all of that.
Kirsten, when I look at all these questions, your firm does I think it's ask a lawyer, ask an attorney, and I've actually sat in 2 or 3 of them. And it was funny, one of the, the sessions that Robert and Michael were doing, this guy said, I won't be here long. I've just got one question. This guy ended up asking 6 other questions. So I can see why there's so many people who've got so many questions. But that was amazing, watching this guy go from 1 question to 6.
Yeah.
And he was like one of 50 people in the session.
Was this down in the Tamarack area, Florida?
Yes, it was.
Centers?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Tamarack. But it was amazing just sitting there as watching them that boy, people just really do have a lot of questions. And I think a lot of people think sometimes they're dumb questions and they think they're going to be embarrassed. Um, you know, Kirsten got her law degree. She is supposed to know this. You're not supposed to know this. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in. Nick in Tampa, he wants a clarification. If a Zoom meeting is held, is a physical location still needed related to the new Florida statute?
If this is for, is he with a condo? If he's with a condominium,
He
then
doesn't say.
yes. If the House Bill 913, which took effect July 1st of this year, 2025, now says that for condominium associations only, if you conduct a what they refer to as a video conference, and the way the term video conference is defined, essentially a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, one of these virtual meetings would qualify as a video conference. If you are if you're going to conduct a meeting via video conference, then you are required to now have identified physical location on the notice of the meeting. You're also required to include a hyperlink as well as a call-in telephone number. Okay. And then importantly, those video conference meetings are now required to be recorded. So if you've given owners the option to attend via Zoom, you're going to have to record that meeting, and you have to maintain that recording as part of the official records. But this requirement that I just discussed is only for condominium associations. It's currently not in Chapter 720 of the Florida statute.
Okay. Craig in Tampa wants to know how many support animals are allowed for an owner to own.
Well, I mean, there's no limitation, right? So you can impose a limitation on assistance animals. And if you have a restriction on the number of pets that a resident can have, that limitation typically does not apply to assistance animals, such as emotional support animals. That said, if an individual is claiming a need for an accommodation to have more than one assistance animal, then certainly there needs to be some kind of documentation to support the need, and that's where the association can request that.
Neil in St. Pete says, "Hi, Kirsten. I never miss one of your shows on Another Relative, Kirsten. What is the difference between a structural inspection and a 40-year inspection?"
So the structural inspection is basically the milestone inspection, right? That was passed several years ago. That has to do with the inspection of the structural components of the building, and that's mandated by Florida statute, right? So it is statewide, and there are certain requirements and limitations. This particular requirement applies only to condominiums that have 3 habitable stories or more, right? And it's due, by December of the year in which the condominium turns 30 years old, right, from the date of occupancy, and then 10 years thereafter. So that's the milestone inspection, essentially. The 40-year inspection, I know of at least one county that has this, and that is Broward County down south. And it used to be called the 40-year inspection, but then after Surfside, it's no longer a 40-year inspection, rather more of a 25-year inspection. But that's more of a local county inspection requirement. Now, the statute does say that if you have done one of these inspections required by your local, county officials, that could qualify for your milestone inspection if it meets the requirements of your milestone inspection. But you need to basically get an engineer to confirm whether your local, whether your inspection that was done subject to your local county requirement meets the milestone requirements.
Hank in Tampa, do we need to add a line item in reserves for structural and electrical starting in 2026 budget so we have the funds in 10 years?
Yeah, so with regard to the SERS, yes, the deadline for waiving the SERS funding was basically this past December 31st of 2024. So any budgets that are adopted after December 31st of 2024 are now required to include funding for SERS. So, yep, you no longer can do away with this funding.
This next question, I believe you've answered, but in case they missed it, Robert in Tampa wants to know, will your firm be doing a budget seminar along with your certification seminars?
So typically when we do board certification webinars or classes, we do, for both condos and HOAs, we do have a section where we talk about budgets and reserves and financial literacy in general. So they are part of our board certification classes.
Okay. Stephen in St. Pete, do I understand correctly? We have 254 units. To defer fully funded reserves requires 75% vote of the total voting interest.
That is incorrect.
Okay.
So in order to waive the full funding on reserves, and I'm talking about non-SERS reserves. So none of these SERS reserves. We're talking about the traditional reserves that, those haven't gone away regardless of whether you are a three-story building or higher or a two-story building, right? So for the non-SERS reserves, members can still vote to waive or partially fund those reserves, but the vote in the statute is a majority of the voting interest, not 75%.
Michael in Tampa, what CEU credits are required besides a legal update for board members? How many in all hours?
Well, if we're talking about the condo, for condominiums,
Yes.
once you do your the 4-hour class, the 4-hour board member certification class, you are just required to do annually one continuing education course, which is that legal update. And our firm was just recently approved by the division to teach that legal update class. In fact, I'm teaching it, when did I say? October 23rd. And I believe we'll be teaching it again in November. So if you can't do the October class, check our calendars on the website for the November class. But that's the one and only continuing education class that condo board members have to do. Every year, take this legal update class. And then for HOAs, your continuing education classes will depend on the size of your community. So if you are in an HOA that has less than 2,500 parcels, you have to do 4 hours of continuing education class every year. If your community has, say that again?
Somebody just wrote in wanting to know how they sign up for your classes.
On our website, typically we have a calendar with the links, so you can just click on that and sign up. But for HOAs, if you are in a community that has 2,500 parcels or more, then you have 8 hours of continuing education classes. And these have to be specific classes that have been credited by the division to satisfy this requirement. So not just any class. Fortunately, we have been approved by the division to teach these classes that do meet this requirement. So check our website.
Deborah in Polk City, our manager says it's illegal to have an in-person interview for a potential owner and renter. Is that true?
Well, I don't know what they mean illegal. Is it illegal because they don't have the authority to approve or disapprove buyers? I wouldn't call it illegal. You're just not authorized to.
Do they have, can they? That's kind of a strange question. Let me go on to the next one. Stephen in Lakeland, we are an HOA. Can we do voting certification like condos?
Voting certificates. Well, if the board wants to require voting certificates, yeah, you can do that. It will require an amendment to your bylaws if you don't currently have that requirement in the bylaws, but you might. So I would first check the bylaws and see if you have the ability to require voting certificates. And voting certificates essentially are used when a parcel is owned by either multiple individuals or it's owned by an entity, right? And so the owners of the unit will identify on that voting certificate who's the individual that's authorized to vote for the parcel. And so when the voting member submits a vote, then the board and property manager can use the voting certificate to confirm that the signature does belong to the voting member. Yeah, I mean, I would check the bylaws to first see if you have the authority. And if not, this is something that can be amended.
Our final question of the night is Jerry in Tampa. He is an HOA. He said, I am delinquent. Can I still run for the board?
No. If you are a candidate and are delinquent on any monetary obligation owed to your HOA, you cannot run for the board. Now, the deadline for you to pay up the delinquency and qualify for board membership is basically the last date by which the candidate can nominate themselves for the board. Sometimes that's on the date of the annual meeting if you take nominations from the floor, or whatever other deadline is imposed by the bylaw. So just make sure you are current by then.
Well, a lot of great questions tonight. And the only thing bad is we don't get to see you till the end of next month, which is tomorrow. Kirsten, you always do such a great job. Tell people again how they can reach your office.
Yes, you can reach the office at 954-928-0680.
And again, we're so glad we have you. We will see you next month, Kirsten.
Indeed. And I think just before Halloween.
Yes.
Does it fall on Halloween? Just before. Okay.
I don't know. Hey, if you're wearing a costume, we'll know.
Exactly.
Have a good one.
Be well. You
that's
too.
Attorney Kirsten Hens with the K. Bender Rimbaum law firm. Great community association firm. Hey, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.